Are there any questions or comments from commission? Questions or comments from our citizens? Hearing none, we'll move on to ordinance number O-19-22, first reading.
An ordinance repealing existing Chapter 33 and enacting a new Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code.
Good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate the time that we've spent in executive session working through this together. As you know, the Human Resources team has compiled a review and recommendation of Chapter 33. It's been some time since we've reviewed and updated this chapter. This is our first reading. I will go through each section of Chapter 33 and indicate a summary of changes for each section. If you'd like me to pause in between for questions, I can certainly do so. Section 33.01, we propose no changes to this section. 33.02, employment conditions. We would recommend a change to incorporate merit-based metrics for performance increases. Any administrative procedure in the ordinance would be reflected in personnel policy and procedure. Section 33.03, holidays and personal days. Prorated personal leave for employees who are hired after January 1 would be incorporated into this section. And again, administrative procedure would be reflected in policy. 33.04, vacations. We would recommend adjusted continuous service requirements to allow the city to offer competitive leave benefits. Modified probationary periods for new hires. Administrative procedure would be reflected in policy and procedure. Section 33.05, sick leave. We would recommend the discontinuance of sick leave payout for employees who are terminated from employment or who voluntarily resign from the city. We would recommend no change for employees who retire or pass away. And administrative procedure would be reflected in policy. 33.06, leave of absence. No changes are needed in this section, and administrative procedure would be reflected in policy. 33.07 is funeral leave. We would propose to increase bereavement leave to 5 days for the death of a parent, child, or spouse, and increase 3 days of bereavement leave for the death of a grandparent or sibling. Administrative procedure would be reflected in policy.
I did have two questions on funeral leave. For it says 5 days, would it be consecutive days?
We did not stipulate that it would be consecutive. Would that be the commission's preference?
I believe so, so that it can't be, spread over multiple weeks, depending on what your work schedule, which leads to kind of my second question. Would it be only for scheduled work days? So if you're already having that day off, you would traditionally wouldn't be paid for.
Correct. That would be the intent. That the leave is assigned for release from work duties. So if it was already a scheduled day off for you, you would not need to assert bereavement leave. So yes, the intention would be for use for scheduled work days.
Okay.
And I can incorporate.
Because I don't see where that is reflected.
Absolutely, and I can incorporate those changes for our second reading.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Section 33.08 is insurance. Recommended changes here are the plan description may include a high deductible health plan. The city will fund 50% of the established deductible. The wellness activity menu would be updated to reflect our current health outcome targets. For example, the BMI is not a good indicator of overall health. We find that to be somewhat useless. Not useless, but it's a hard metric to achieve, and so we'd like to replace that with another health outcome of A1C levels for pre-diabetic states.
Is this going to be consistent with what the unions are doing?
Yes, sir. It is consistent with the bargaining unit contract proposals. I believe we do have an ordinance and charter language that says that the employees will all be offered the same benefit plan offerings. So it is not the city's intent to negotiate something different for the unions and ask the commission to apply something different for Schedule A employees. We would like consistent plan offerings for all employees. Additionally, in this section, the opt-out amounts would be increased to allow flexibility for competitive plan offerings, and administrative procedure would be reflected in personnel policy. The remaining sections, 33.09 through 33.18, we recommend no changes to the language, and any administrative procedure would be reflected in policy.
Catherine, just for clarification, I know that this information has been before us, but the public hasn't seen it yet, so I'm assuming after this meeting, it will be out there for public to look at. We've got a few more readings on this as well.
Yes, Commissioner Hines, I did want to not preemptively release this to the public in the agenda packet because we were discussing it, its terms and conditions of employment, and I needed to discuss that with you all in a closed executive session. And in the event that the commission's appetite wasn't to move this forward, I didn't want to preemptive release something that you all weren't comfortable with. Moving forward, it will be released in the public agenda.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure the public were
Yeah.
aware of that. so
Definitely, yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commission or citizens?
Thank you.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to ordinance number O-20-22, first reading.
An ordinance repealing Schedule A of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code and adopting a new Schedule A of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code relating to wages of certain municipal employees.
Thank you, Commission. Schedule A covers our salaries for full-time, non-bargaining unit employees. The schedule before you reflects a 3% cost of living adjustment for 2023. This has been applied to all wages on the table, and certain classifications will be adjusted in an effort to support organizational efficiencies and operations. Again, to Commissioner Hines' point a moment ago, this was not released ahead of the executive session. It will be included in the packet for your second and third readings.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to ordinance number O-21-22, first reading.
An ordinance repealing Schedule A1 of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code and adopting a new Schedule A of Chapter 33 of the Piqua Code relating to wages of certain municipal employees.
Thank you. Schedule A1 pertains to our part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees. There was an increase in the Ohio State minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. We've made that adjustment on the table before you. Additionally, for active classifications, we've added a cost of living adjustment for those positions as well.
Any comments or questions from commission or our citizens? All right. Moving on to resolution number R-121-22.
A resolution adopting the City of Piqua's 2023 to 2025 capital improvement plan.
Good evening. Each year, at the beginning of the year, the department directors convene for a discussion about what capital improvement needs they have upcoming in their department or as it relates to city priorities and programs that upcoming year and over the next 3 years. And so the meetings began in April timeframe. The department directors began to assemble their list of capital projects and the cost associated with each of those projects. So that information then can be presented to the Capital Improvement Plan Committee. Once the items are presented to the committee, there's a ranking process that's undertaken with the committee's involvement, which includes a member of the commission, city manager, and planning commission, so that we can really begin to prioritize the projects that are being proposed. Following the adjustments to the CIP plan based upon the committee's input in that ranking process, the plan is then presented at a planning commission meeting for public review and consideration, and then subsequently presented at a city commission work session for discussion and review and response to questions. Finally, any of the revisions that come out of those discussions or meetings are integrated into the final plan document, and the document is updated to be a final version and included here this evening and presented to the city commission for formal adoption. I think it's important to note that the 2023 to 2025 capital improvement plan. Our plan is a 3-year plan. It's simply a schedule of capital improvements as we currently understand them. Things change a little bit as time moves along, but this gives us a tool to be able to forecast when it comes for budgeting purposes and planning for expenditures down the road. What's also important to realize is the CIP does not appropriate any funds. It's simply a planning document so that we can conduct our other business and plan accordingly. And with that, I would present to you the 2023 to 2025 capital improvement plan and request your approval.
Do I understand the things that appeared on the 2022 CIP plan and may have not been funded, but they do not appear on 23 and beyond, those items just go away, or are they automatically transferred into the new plan?
So a lot of times there's projects that we know need to happen, but there's not an available funding source identified. So they'll be on, I'll call it a queue, or a list that we'll maintain at the department level, knowing that that's something that needs to be advanced, but there's still some legwork that needs to be done to make it a funded project that can be implemented. So each director maintains their list of projects. If it's on the 2022 CIP, it's in the CIP, it's referenced, people realize that it needs to happen. Typically, you would see a project that didn't happen in a certain year carry over to the next year. That's not always the case. Sometimes there's, like I say, changes due to whatever circumstances where things are being further evaluated and determined as to when is the right year for that project to be funded or when can it be funded. So if I don't know the specific project, although I can hazard a guess, but what I can tell you is if it was in the CIP in 2022, obviously it's on the queue, and so we're cognizant of the fact that it's a project that needs to be funded in advance, but there's work to be done to get there.
Chris, just so the public understands this, and I believe this is the first time we have done it this way. I think this is one of the things that you have brought to our city to look at this and give our citizens an idea of who sat down to do this ranking, because it's really an interesting way to do this, that you have all these different people around the table, and I think about it like as a family putting a budget together, and you've got every family member there, and you know, so-and-so may have passion for this, or so-and-so may have passion for that, but everybody is voting on what is the most need for the family, what is the most need for our city, because we can't do everything. We just don't have money in the bank. So can you talk just a little bit to that so the citizens can understand?
Sure. So when we started doing this, last year was actually the first year, we set out to establish a process by where there'd be some equity in terms of how we rank projects and prioritize them. And so in the packet there with your CIP document is the ranking system that was created. So it goes about defining what is a capital project and the goal of the program and how we prioritize them and the different project types and the funding sources that are typically evaluated. But then in that, if you go on further, the project ranking criteria is really spelled out in a fair amount of detail. And there's, I think, 7 categories each project is evaluated under. Everything from planning to what impact it has on infrastructure needs, what impact will it have on economic growth, health, public safety, what is the external funding, that is, are we able to leverage sources of funds other than local dollars? How does it impact the operational budget? Will it reduce cost in terms of operating? Are there regulatory compliance requirements driving the need and the priority of this project? And then just timing and location. Are there other capital improvements that it's going to coincide with? So it's important that it goes now so that the projects can happen in tandem. So all those different criteria, there's a scoring scale of 1 to 10. 1, it doesn't really meet the measure. 10, it's a slam dunk. It's really critical and important and meets all those criteria that are spelled out. And then through that process, those numbers are assigned. The process itself, the capital improvement planning committee, the planning commission member, city commission member, and city manager are, they're the ones that are, the directors are presenting their projects to that committee and explaining why they think it scores a certain way. And then that committee subsequently makes some adjustments if they say, you know what, I don't really think that's a 9, that's probably a 7. And then that's reflected in the final ranking process. Each director is really presenting the projects that fall under their area of purview, because that really then ties back to the account or the fund that they're responsible for managing. So the ranking from one fund to another, you know, it's defined, but it depends on who's doing the ranking. I might call something a 10 and Brian might call it a 5. But if it's in your fund, it's all relative to what's in that fund, so it's not really competing against the other funds that way. And then, like I say, the CIP committee is actually making the final determination to decide, hey, that needs to go up a little bit, we think that's a higher priority, or, you know what, that one's gonna have to wait, let's back that down a little bit. And so then that is what's tabulated, and then that's what we put out there at the Planning Commission forum for a public review process, and then subsequently a city commission work session for further discussion and public review. And then ultimately, it's assembled into a final document and presented for adoption.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I think sometimes it's confusing for our citizens that we have certain funds that can only be used for certain things versus we have all this money, well, why can't we do this, this, or this? And also just thinking about, you know, in our own homes, there's a lot of things we want to do, but we want to make sure that the roof is stable. We want to make sure that the foundation is stable and all of those things. And so a lot of what we're seeing here are some of those nuts and bolts infrastructure things that we need to take care of that are the highest priority. And it's not the painting of the walls or the curtains or whatever you want to say. It's hard. I mean, it's hard as a family to sit around and do this, but I like the fact that we were able to have a committee and there were different voices coming in from the commission, from the city manager, from the planning, you know, so it wasn't just a few people sitting down and making these decisions. They're not easy decisions to make.
It's a very thoughtful and open and transparent process. And to your point, you know, as we saw earlier in the budget work session, you know, there's more capital need than there is revenue. So it really becomes, you know, a difficult task, but an important task to be able to prioritize these projects and figure out which ones are going to go first because not everything can be funded.
Yeah.
Chris, are these, the improvement plan available after we hopefully adopt the resolution?
Yep, of course. It's out there publicly, of course, as part of the packet. And we'll post it to the website with our other
Great.
planning documents, so
Thank
it's easily accessible.
Good.
My question kind of tied into Commissioner Vedder's. So for my understanding, because I saw that too, there was stuff that was on 2022s that's not on 2023s. Did it just go away? So I'm confused on your statement where there's a queue of things that still we're working on and trying to get, whether there's funding or not. And then is there ones that made it to the CIP but then were removed for any reason whatsoever? I'm just trying to find out why they would be removed from the CIP.
And nothing to my knowledge that was on the plan and then removed.
I know
not
House
in
Pavilion I didn't
2023.
see on there.
Yeah, and it's a work in progress. This is the second
Yeah,
year.
absolutely.
And one of the things Jennifer and I were talking about is how we can more tightly integrate this with the budgeting process so that the funding sources reflected tie right into the budgeting activity and to make sure that when projects are listed, that then if they're not able to be funded, they don't just fall into oblivion and we lose track of it. So there's some other things that need to be created, I think, in terms of tracking projects and their status and making sure that we're delivering them in a timely manner as it relates to the community goals and objectives and priorities. and available funding sources.
So is there, and I guess that'd be my recommendation just for that transparency, is that Q, it's not a part of the CIP, but can it be listed as like an appendix or something? So I just don't want things to get forgotten. Does something not
Like
translate
Hansford
from
did.
year to day, or from last year to this year, and it just got overlooked as, in that way, something that can be reviewed? Or, yeah, did we take it off just because funding that we thought was going to be available is not, and really other higher priorities came, and we're just removing it off the CIP because it doesn't fit in the next 3 years, but we may be looking in the next 5 to 10 or something like that.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Grissom, I can add to that as well. So eventually, the CIP will be integrated with our GIS. And so anything that would be parked in the unfunded could be a layer that would demonstrate the projects of need, but not yet of funding. So as we work forward through this, and to what Mr. Schmeezing was saying, a lot of the projects are going to go out several years, and if they do, they'll stay on the list. It'll just be coded as an unfunded project, and that way, if you go to look it up, the information, the pertinent information for where it's at in the process would be identified.
Okay, yeah, as long as there's some kind of tracking, because if you don't see it, you're going to assume it's not important, and that may not be the case.
And I don't want people to forget, I mean, because I didn't see Hans Pavilion on there either. And I want people to know that we do care about that, and that it may not be funded right now, but that we're still thinking about it.
Right, we'll clean it up. This is an evolution, so we're as Commissioner Hines was saying, it's sort of like your family budget. We're all working on the best way to put that together.
Absolutely, I mean, we've came a long way in just 1 year. Moving on to the second, it's looking, I mean,
Yep,
it's,
looks good, but
All right. Any other questions or comments? Citizens have questions or comments? All right, we'll need a motion to adopt resolution number R-121-22.
so moved?
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Do we have a second?
Oh, I thought you seconded it.
Second.
Oh, okay. I just,
He moved.
I made the motion. Okay.
I'll second.
All right,
Thanks,
all
David.
those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
opposed.
Resolution number R-121-22 is adopted. Resolution number R-122-22.
A resolution authorizing purchase orders to Chemical Services, Inc., Sow Chemical, Greer Lime Company, Water Solutions Unlimited, Inc., JCI Chemicals, Inc., and the City of Dayton for the 2023 purchase of various water treatment chemicals.
Yes, hello, Commission. I want to introduce to you tonight Todd Hone. Todd is our water superintendent, and he's been with us about 15 months, and he's going to go over the chemical cost with you.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the commission, appreciate your time. Nice to put a name with a face.
We're having trouble hearing. There we go.
Oh, you are? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Great.
Thanks.
Great. Okay. Okay. Yes. Madam Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of commission, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, likewise.
The screen that we have in front of you right now, we tried to correlate the last several years' expenses versus production. Unfortunately, being a utility, we're not immune to the inflationary pressures that the rest of the economy is seeing. For the 2023 budget year, we're estimating an increase of a little more than 26.5% in our chemical costs. It's two-pronged, really. Supply chain and labor issues are driving up the cost of production. Transportation-wise, the cost of diesel's almost doubled in just the last year, so the transport costs are also hitting us pretty hard. We did include a 10% contingency with this budget to hopefully cushion any blow if there are any other cost increases during the course of the 2023 calendar year. I will open the floor to any questions.
Is it the same companies that we generally use? I see multiple companies listed. Just I know with some inflation, maybe others are becoming more competitive. I know we've had good service in the past, but Is that something we looked at?
We did go through the bid process like we have in previous years, and yes, some of the vendors are the same. Dayton Lime is the same. We do have a new chlorine vendor. I believe our coagulant vendor is the same. But yeah, we went through the bid process just like we have at any other calendar years, and these were the low bids.
All right, perfect, thank you.
So am I understanding this correctly? From 2019 to 2023, the amount of dollar per pound has gone up 33.8%? Wow.
Yes, it has.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Gosh, okay.
Well, and I think it's important to note, just from our budget
Using
process
less.
earlier, looking at, I mean, we've done everything we can and continue to on reducing overall expenses because of this trending line upwards for just product. So it's helped kind of mitigate some of it, but it's still growing at a rapid rate, just like everything else.
And we've made efforts to cut costs as well. Before I started, they stopped feeding soda ash, which is a secondary softening agent. This year, we stopped feeding powder activated carbon because it was a redundant process. We have granular activated carbon in our treatment train, so they essentially do the same thing. So we're trying to trim the fat any place that we can, and we're having fairly good results. I mean, our production is down, but our costs, for the most part, well, 33% over 5 years, but and most of that has been the last 2. So.
I just appreciate the efforts on, saving where we can.
And we're not talking about chemicals that we choose to use and not use.
Yeah.
We're talking about essential kinds of things.
We'd be in trouble if we weren't using them,
Yeah.
let's just put it that way.
Any other questions or comments? Citizens, questions or comments? All right.
I'd move the approval of Resolution R-122-22.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-123-22.
A resolution approving the use of employment services for 2022.
Good evening, Commissioners. If you'll recall from our budget discussion earlier, we talked about the golf course and the fact that the city, we are utilizing a consultant this year to try to help us get the golf course in a better financial condition. And as part of that relationship, this year, we also utilized Hampton Golf to help us acquire a golf manager. At the end of 2021, our longtime golf professional retired. The city, we attempted to find a replacement for that position. We were unable to do so, and at that time, we were already working with the consultant. They were able to find us a temporary replacement and then ultimately a replacement for that position. This resolution before you tonight would approve the purchase order going over the $50,000 mark, where we're required to get your approval on that. We would still realize a savings. We budgeted $90,919 to cover the expenses related to the management of the course, and this would be a savings.
Are there any comments or questions?
Yes, are we going to use the management company next year?
Yes, so we went out for proposals on a third-party administrator for the golf course, and we will be bringing that contract proposal before the commission, hopefully by the end of the year. We are in contract negotiations right now.
So go ahead, did you have another?
I'm sorry, yeah. Is
Go
it
ahead, sorry.
expected to exceed what we're paying this year?
Well, no, not exactly. We are paying consulting fees this year. We chose to do that route to see what the management company could bring to the table for us. This year, we knew that we wanted to get the new POS system in place, for example, which requires a vast amount of setup and research, and we utilized their expertise to help us with that. I believe their proposal for next year is similar, if not same, as what we're paying for the consulting this year.
Thank you.
So this amount covers the contract, which covers the salary for the manager as well? So it's paying for the consulting plus the hiring of this person who's being hired under their umbrella, is that correct?
This particular purchase order is strictly for the management services of the manager that we have on site. It's sort of like we utilized the consultant as a employment service. They were able to source the candidates for us when we were unable to do so. So this covers the salary.
So he would be a City of Piqua employee?
He is not currently. He is an employee of the consultant, and that would continue.
Okay, but this is just going for his salary, it's not the consulting fee?
Correct.
Okay. Just for clarification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, I would take a motion to adopt.
Can I ask another question? Sorry. So, and again, I know about this much about golf. So the replacement manager, the salary that is up there was for a golf pro, correct? So is this person a golf pro or is he a golf manager?
He is a golf manager. He is working towards his professional credentials.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution R-123-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Could you call the roll? I didn't hear everybody.
Sure. Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Hines,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Mayor Pearson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vetter.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Resolution R-123-22 has been adopted. Resolution number R-124-22.
A resolution repealing Resolution Number R-99-22 and amending the grant allocation for the Piqua Small Business Grant Program.
Commission, you'll recall in September of this year, at the direction of City Commission, we presented to you an item asking for a $350,000 allocation of funds to set up the Small Business Grant Program. That was authorized by City Commission, as was the program framework, and when we went about the business of administering the program and soliciting proposals for that grant opportunity. In October, we advertised for the applications. We had a defined application period. Really didn't know what to expect in terms of the response we would receive. We conducted a couple public information sessions and were able to communicate the way the program was designed to work, which basically was geared towards providing small business owners who had struggled through the pandemic with a little boost, if you will, to maybe help them advance some deferred maintenance items or improvements to their facilities or buildings, be it the business owner or the building owner that serves a small business. Ultimately, what we saw in response to the program was an overwhelming interest. We had 29 applications requesting over $747,000 in grant support. As the committee convened to review the number of applications and the types of requests that were being made, we quickly arrived at a suggestion of if there could be more funding, it would be great if we could help as many of these businesses as possible. So you have before you this evening a request to increase the small business grant program allocation from $350,000 to $500,000. The allocation, you'll recall, comes from the general fund, although that was made possible by the receipt of ARPA funds that offset other expenses that would have been carried by the general fund. And so in essence, the $100,000 or the $150,000 difference would be made up for through the utilization of those ARPA dollars that were otherwise going to be allocated to neighborhood assistance programs or some other activities that just haven't really materialized in terms of the program definition and or intent really making sense, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so the ask is that those be shifted to the small business grant program so that we can better meet the overwhelming need and interest that we have received from the small business community.
So are we able to fund 25 of the 29? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the next resolution gets into the list of recommended projects, and of the 29 submitted, 25 are being recommended for funding. Of those 25, 5 are being partially funded. And it was, quite an exercise to see the committee go through multiple iterations of trying to parse down the total grant amount, but still fund those projects that were all very worthy and had different work elements that some made more sense in terms of their investment into the building stock, and it seemed to better suit the program goals. Other elements of work maybe were not as consistent with the program goals or related to expenditures that weren't building stock related. So the committee kind of put those to the side in their effort to get down beneath the 500,000. And that was with the hope that the commission would increase the program from 350 to 500. If necessary, we'd go back to the committee to try to get to the 350. But I can tell you it would be a very daunting exercise, just given that there's such a strong interest in some really good projects. At the end of the day, the $500,000 investment is going to generate about over $1 million in total activity in terms of investment in our downtown. So the impact is going to be quite impactful in terms of the work being done and just the outward-facing evidence of that expenditure and the return on investment it represents.
And if I can speak to that, because I sit on this committee along with quite a few other citizens, some who are here this evening, it was really exciting in the room to look through all of the small businesses that had applied. Exciting, and we talked about the ARPA money. We talked about the fact that what we are using this money for is a lot of facade, a lot of just beautifying of our community, but necessary things that need to happen for these small businesses. We also talked about what an impact it would be not only in our community, but in the wider Miami Valley, to say that we have given out $500,000 to help our small business. It's a lot of what the commission has talked about to support small businesses here in our community, and that's the heart of who we are as a city. So that was really exciting. So I will say, as the commissioner that sits on this committee, it was really hard as we went through it, and in order to make things, as we made decisions, there were certain things like asphalt. What else was that, Mr. Schmeezing? Asphalt, some certain things that kind of helped us choose the ones that we did because we were looking for the biggest bang for the buck, if you will. So what was it, asphalt and? Asphalt
was kind of the biggest big-ticket item that didn't really make the cut. Roofing was, we did our best to fund the roofing where possible, electrical, some of the things that were less visible but no less essential to the building being operable and a safe place to conduct business and important to that business owner in terms of those upgrades that they're asking for.
Well, and it's a great message to other small businesses who are looking to establish themselves somewhere that we are a city who supports small business. We are a city that wants to help them get off the ground, because for those of you who have been in small businesses, many of you are here, it's hard sometimes without a little help to get moving. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what it's going to say about who we are as a community.
I had one question. As you know, from the very beginning, we were totally in support of some of our small businesses with the original allocation. Up and at 150,000, the only concern I have is anytime you add from a fund, you're taking away from somewhere else. And I know you said there was some other ARPA funds, but I'd like to see a detailed list of where those, what we're taking away. I think that's important to know if we're going to add to one, especially, I guess my question, kind of almost looking into the next resolution, is with this grant program, it was specifically for downtown, correct, in our business district?
No, it was for the downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. It wasn't exclusive to the downtown.
Yeah, but, so not the entire city, though?
In theory, if it was a small business that met the definition of small business, it could be supported regardless of where it was at in the city.
Because I didn't see that in the actual grant program. So that was my only concern was COVID had impacted a lot, and I want to support all the small businesses, not just a local group or area or those. So that, I just wanted to make sure everybody had the equal opportunity on the same type of program. So anybody within the city of Piqua that had a small business could apply for this.
Correct. And there are multiple examples of folks who are not in the downtown proper, who are on the recommended list for funding.
Okay.
And just to clarify, that $150,000, my understanding was money that the commission had set aside that had not been used, correct? That ARPA money?
Correct. So we discussed a few different programs, and one of them was a program for house improvements that's covered under the CHIP funding. So in essence, we were adding to the funding that was already existing. And then 50,000 of it was going to be diverted from our downtown improvements. I think we had 400,000 set aside, and we dipped into that bucket to get the other 50.
And that money had sat there for a while and not been used, is that right?
Yeah, it was from our first tranche, yeah.
Yeah.
And we really didn't have a program to stand up. There was already one in place.
So I have a question. Frank, this resolution says that we are repealing Resolution R-99-22, taking away that 350,000, but then we're amending it by adding 150 to it?
The reason why that was probably done is because when you passed the resolution previously, it was for a lower amount. You're now adding. And so you repeal the old resolution and you basically pass a new resolution with the new numbers.
Okay, so we're adding 150,000.
That's my understanding, Chris.
Yeah, the intent is to repeal and replace, is how it reads in the section that adopts it. So this would repeal the resolution that enacted the $350,000 allocation and replace it with a resolution enacting a $500,000 allocation.
So the 4 people who didn't qualify for the grants, were they told why?
We've notified them. The basic explanation at this point was the overwhelming response to the program, but
So we do it
I think
again.
we do owe them a deeper response. And until we had some definition from the city commission that you were comfortable with the approved list, we didn't go any further with making those kind of notifications. But I can tell you the reason is there was I think consensus there in terms of, if not a unanimous opinion, that those projects simply did not meet the objectives of the program, and or in a
They're
couple.
excluded from, they're just excluded from this time.
This time. So should we have a future allocation, they'd be welcome to apply again, and hopefully we can fund more projects.
Any other questions or comments from our citizens commission?
I want to propose we table this topic only I want to see a little bit more on where those monies that would be taken from, to be able to see what kind of impact that might have on other programs. It's not that I'm not in support of the small businesses by any means, and I'm all forward to helping them, but I just want a little bit more information on what we'd be taken from and what kind of impact that would have on our ARPA funds.
So if you want to table it, then you'll need to make a motion
I'll
to
make a
table the
motion
resolution.
to table Resolution R-124-22.
Second?
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Hines,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Pearson,
No.
Commissioner Vetter.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution number R-124-22 has been,
I mean, we'll have to table this next one as well, then?
Yeah, I think it
we
makes
won't
sense
be
that
able
we'll
to
table
do the
that too.
award.
Because I think that leads in some of those questions.
And I can understand asking the questions. I think it's just to get the clarity for citizens as well, too. So I think we're all in agreement that we want
Yeah.
to support small
It's
businesses.
$500,000 for our small businesses. I just want to make sure that we're looking at them appropriately, not by any means
Oh,
that
I
I'm
want to give
against it.
the money to the small businesses for sure.
Oh,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Just let us review it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple more questions I want to ask as well.
Okay. So this resolution, R-124-22, has been tabled. Resolution number R-125-22.
A resolution awarding grants for the Piqua Small Business Grant Program.
I recommend
make-
we table it.
Yeah, you make a motion to table. I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Hines,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Pearson,
No.
Commissioner Vetter.
Aye.
And I don't want to table it forever. I mean, I'm hoping we can
We
get the
get- yeah.
information maybe before next meeting.
I'm
and
in
bring it
favor of
back
that.
out. So,
And our next meeting is the 1st of December, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
so,
Because I know these people are waiting to
sure.
hear
To do the
about
improvements
this.
and stuff.
I agree.
So,
And some of them are desperately waiting to hear, so.
yes.
Okay, resolution number R-125-22 has been tabled. Resolution number R-126-22.
A resolution to authorize a replat of N44-072866 and N44-072868 with dedication of right-of-way along East Ash Street.
Commission, this is a request that we received from the new owner of the property located on East Ash Street, just east of Looney Road, to the east of the Clark Station, just to the west of the Long John Silver site. This was formerly occupied by 3 single-family residential structures that have since been removed. The one lot is developed as part of the Clark Station. The remaining 2 are the 2 that are being considered here this evening. The applicant, Ohio Cannabis, I believe, is the applicant. It's one of 2 medical marijuana dispensaries who have secured a license from the state and are looking to establish a presence in Piqua. This site is the site that they are intending to develop. They are looking to combine what is currently 2 in-lots into 1 lot, i.e. the replat. And then as part of the replat, they would be dedicating that portion of land along US 36 that is in effect public right-of-way supporting the roadway infrastructure. This item was previously presented to the Planning Commission and unanimously recommended for approval. And per the ordinances and process required, it's now being presented to the City Commission for your adoption.
Any questions or comments from commission? No. Any questions or comments from citizens?
I said, what did you call it? What was the name of the business?
There are 2. I believe this one's the Ohio Cannabis Company.
Okay, and there's another business as well?
That's the next item.
Oh, okay, sorry. Jumping ahead.
Okay. I move
I'm
to
sorry,
adopt.
it's not the next item, that's a different one.
I move to adopt resolution number R-126-22.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Resolution carried. Resolution number R-127-22.
A resolution to recommend approval for a replat of 7 parcels totaling 17.6 acres into 3 new parcels located along North County Road 25A with right-of-way dedication.
So Commissioner Hines, I was mistaken. This is on 25A, but it's down the road from the other medical marijuana dispensary, also on 25A, which I believe is the Green Goat LLC is the company there. That project is already underway. This particular item is related to 8708 North County Road 25A, where you would find First Choice Automotive Repair, and the land that surrounds it. The owner of that property is the Scarborough family, and they are basically asking to replat the property to consolidate existing lots that are have boundaries that really don't make sense with the existing improvements, and then also to establish new lot lines that will better enable their interest in selling the remaining property, the remaining acreage that basically sits to the rear of the existing improvements. They would retain one small separate lot that they're proposing to establish to the rear and to the right of the auto repair shop. And that's simply should the auto repair business end up needing another piece of property to support their efforts, and/or if that ends up wanting to be a part of the 15 acres to the rear that they're selling. They don't know, but creating a separate lot will allow them to convey it more effectively. The other part of this is they would be, as they consolidate some of the existing lots and clean up the boundaries of the parcel lines, they would be preserving a 50-foot ingress-egress access from County Road 25A to the 15 acres in the rear, to ensure that there would be access out to County Road 25A. And then finally, here again, their ownership interest extends out into the highway easement. And when that happens, and there's a replat or something of this nature, the practice is to define that as dedicated public right-of-way. So they're dedicating that portion of highway easement that already exists as public right-of-way, which is the more common practice for how you do things inside the city as opposed to in the county. Happy to answer any questions.
And this is basically so they can, I remember this from the Planning Commission, this is just so they can get back to that property, the Scarborough property, correct?
It is, and the lot lines related to the parcel occupied by the existing building improvements really are, they're skewed. They don't align with how the improvements are developed now. So this reconfigures the lot boundaries to better reflect the existing improvements so that they're on that parcel.
Okay.
And Planning Commission has approved this, correct?
Yes, there was a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Citizens' questions or comments? I move that we adopt resolution.
Wait.
Person coming forward.
Yeah, Roy.
Okay. Hi.
My name's Roland Sarmel of 660 South Street. You'll remember that. I won't. Do you really think we need marijuana shops in this picker? You think that's going to
That
bring?
was for the last one.
Do you think that's going to bring people in this town knowing we sell marijuana in this town? Is that going? You older people, I don't care about marijuana. But you think that's going to bring people in this town because we sell marijuana? Probably two of them, at least two of them. You think that's going to bring people in this town? We want people coming to this town. That's why we got so many rentals in this town. Nobody wants to settle in this town. When we going to realize that, people? Hey, you guys up there complaining about how many rentals we got. I got some in this town, but you guys complain about how many we got because nobody wants to settle in this town. Nobody wants to settle. They'll come and rent this town, then they're going to move out of town. Do you really think marijuana plants going to bring people in this town?
I can tell you, we did a survey about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, and it was overwhelmingly positive for bringing that type of business to this
Young
town.
kids, probably. Look how many overdoses we got in this town.
It's medical marijuana, and there needs to be
It's
a
all marijuana,
prescription.
ma'am.
Well, we did do quite a bit of background work on this as a commission.
We did.
With physicians and a variety of other things,
Look
so.
at these doctors. They're giving people this stuff here. I mean, you can get that from any doctor, marijuana. I could probably go get it, and ain't nothing wrong with me.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
And
just messing with you. But you probably could, but the revenue, the taxes that it would bring would help the city as well. So,
I understand that, but you think so helping people in this town? Yodel people don't want that in this town.
well, it's,
We got enough drugs in
what
this town.
happens is people will come
If I
and
go
then they
burn my
may
house
stop
down,
and go to Walmart or go to Hardee's or someplace, or they may go out to Dunham's. I mean,
The night.
they may spend the night, yeah,
Because,
hopefully.
because I think when we did this,
Hopefully.
it was like Lima. I mean, it was quite a bit of distance when we started this whole process.
They get the munchies afterwards, yeah.
What other towns got these marijuana stores?
Wapakoneta and Dayton.
Yeah,
Those
and
are
there's
the only
nothing in
ones close.
between.
All the-
There's
That's
nothing in
why.
between.
Or the criminals they got down there.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna say from a,
Wapakoneta doesn't have any criminals, do they? They don't have that many like Dayton, do they?
and I know this is off topic, but Ohio is one of the most regulated. It's very stringent. The rules and regulations, you can only have one person in at a time. It's not like just a head shop that you can walk in and purchase. It is a legit medical type. It's not just a street dealer selling it type of situation. But we are getting off topic, and we can
Yep.
probably readdress this in
Yeah, we
public
can
comment.
talk, you can
Because
talk
this
about it in your
resolution
open
doesn't
if you
involve
want,
that.
Yeah, this resolution.
but we gotta go back to this resolution.
We're-
I wanted you to say what you had to say though, so, and I appreciate you.
I
you.
just don't,
Okay,
Thank you.
I just-
Appreciate you.
We're trying to get people coming to this town. to
You're
rest-
right.
You're
to
right.
rest in this town, not just
Yeah,
come
we
in
need
town,
housing
get
for
the
those
rent, and go
people.
out.
All right. Thank you. I move that we adopt resolution number R-127-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution carried. Resolution number R-128-22.
A resolution authorizing a contract with Avero LLC doing business as Avero Advisors to provide information technology services to the city of Piqua.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll be speaking on this evening. So as I've been informing you, we're working towards migrating to professional services for IT. It's very common across the private sector to use a third party to provide hosting network, the network applications, as well as doing any project-related work. And so what we're doing is migrating currently from a service that's in-house and on-prem to basically an off-site service that will manage the network remotely. However, we are in the near future going to hire a help desk person that will be here to assist on a day-to-day basis, as well as a general services director that will also be overseeing the IT contract. The benefit to this is not having your own IT department, you're not doubling on your services when you contract with a consultant to do implementation. And as our IT assessment and strat plan points to, is we have 3 years of implementation of a lot of different areas. The first one being Office 365, which is not on-prem, it's hosted in the cloud. So having the consultant basically bill on hours for escalated help desk functions instead of having somebody there that's, waiting for the call is beneficial to the bottom line.
Can you speak, and I know, but can you, for the citizens, can you speak to security? Because when you hear about third party and things like that,
Correct.
people might get concerned about that.
Yeah, so I can't speak too in-depthly on the IT assessment, but what it did do is it identified our vulnerabilities with both the network and with whatever software and hardware we're currently using. One example of that is we're still running Windows 7, which is unsupported, Windows 8, which is unsupported. That alone is a security risk. Then when you look at the network, our switches, you thankfully approved our expenditure last meeting for new servers and switches, which are also subject to penetration just by age. And so, from a security aspect, actually having Office 365 is a more secure service than using an on-prem hosted Office suite, and so it reduces basically the need to do patches and updates, and so we're moving towards more subscription services and less hosted services, which require not only patches and updates, but those updates tend to be expensive over time. So it should normalize our expenditures across time.
Yeah, and I just wanted the citizens to understand that, because I don't think they realized what we were operating with here, and most businesses are using Office 365, so, yeah,
Right.
and keeping it in the cloud, so, thank you.
Yeah, I was looking at it on the Appendix B, the very last part of it, when it came to hourly rates. It does say outside of billable hours, because I know some of the concern initially when I looked at it, it said like help desk support $75 an hour, which that seemed extremely high. But, so is that more like, can you explain that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so that's all basically project-related expenditures or costs that would be related to task orders. If you looked at the page in front of that, task order 1, the ERP implementation, so that's how you would set up implementation of that particular ERP system, and it would be a negotiated cost to do that. Again, it's having an outside consultant come in and do that versus using who's hosting your network provides a great deal of savings.
Okay. And so kind of coming to savings, I know there's, like I said, updating our system, make sure that we're up to speed, because IT's always changing. There's always different things. It's nice to have a large provider that understands those, and they incur a lot of those costs of staying up to date. So I definitely understand the need for that. It doesn't really have some of the financials here listed for like maybe initial costs. Are those going to be reflected in our budget? since we
It's
just
in the
did
budget
those?
document,
Okay.
yes.
And then I think the last thing I kind of had was just like for data breaches. I mean, it's nice that it would provide us more protection in that sense, but I didn't really see anything if there was a data breach. Would they have any kind of responsibility in that sense, as well as if it's a vulnerability to their system, would they be at liable versus us?
Correct. So part of what we're doing is migrating into that service, which the equipment that we put on order helps to solve that. And so in essence, they'll take full responsibility for the network at some point in the near future when we get the servers implemented. Until then, it's kind of a similar situation to when we used a consultant to work side by side, helping us navigate whether it was a golf course or the use of the Fort Piqua Plaza. So we're using expertise in conjunction with what we're doing currently with our IT staff until we get to a point where we can hand it off.
Okay. And did we compare other companies?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And was there anything particular that set this company apart?
Correct. So when I reached out to get pricing from other companies, what I realized was the work that we did with the IT assessment and setting up the 3-year strat plan, essentially they would charge us to come in and do again because they're not going to accept the work from another consultant. That being said, they're already ahead of the curve in understanding our systems. Something as simple as replacing a switch on our network that where our our internet comes in, it throttled down our speed, and for $38, we increased to gigabyte speed. So those kinds of things, it's already in motion. When we go through the implementation over 3 years, instead of keep hiring different consultants, it'll be continuity of the program using the same consultant throughout that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that speeds up the efficiency of our workers, so.
Correct.
yeah.
And, similarly to the golf course or even Fort Piqua Plaza, we're going to make an investment on the front end and focus on getting the organization to have a higher capacity, business capacity that reduces our overhead, certainly, but it should improve our engagement with the public. And one of those is what's going on in UBO right now.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from commission? Any questions or comments from our citizens? I move that we adopt resolution number R-128-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carried. It's now time for public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the City Commission regarding agenda items, issues, or to provide information. Comments are requested to be limited to 5 minutes, and specific questions should be addressed to our city manager's office. Any comments?
Good evening, Commissioners. Lorna Swisher, the Executive Director of Main Street Piqua. I just wanted to say thank you to the City of Piqua for the extraordinary support that we got for the Downtown Piqua Holiday Horse Parade this past Saturday. The Police Department, Street Department, Parks Department, every other department that stepped up to make a fabulous event. Mother Nature even cooperated by throwing some snow in on the deal. So there are so many people that have to work together to bring together horses walking down Main Street, because what could possibly go wrong with wild animals and thousands of people? So I wanted to just thank the city for the extraordinary support that we got. There's no doubt about it that it was a success, and as a community, it was really embraced. So I just wanted to thank you and thank city staff for all of their support as well. Thank you.
Thanks for all your work on it.
Thank you. It's a great parade. Wow.
Hello, good evening. I just wanted to, Mindy Gregerson. I live on Hessler Road, but I have the Mercantile at 415 North Main. I just want to thank you guys for your consideration for the grant program. I think it's great because I know there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't be able to do to my building, so.
We want you to do that.
But the other thing I was going to ask about, and since you're talking about money, why not? Is our holiday decorations downtown. We don't have any. We have a few lights in our trees. Doesn't give much atmosphere downtown, much joyful atmosphere. You see these other towns that they've had a tree donated and they've got someone that is, gonna put it up for them. Why don't we? We're settling for second best all the time.
I will say, because I had somebody contact me this past week about the Christmas tree downtown. And I know when we had to take the Christmas tree downtown because it had aged and it was a safety hazard, we had moved it to the one over there by referees, and we had decorated it, and we had the conversation about ornaments and things like that and whatever. And there's been a lot of conversation already about the Christmas tree. And so I talked to the city manager about that, because we do want something like that down there. But because there apparently is somebody that might want to donate one, and why can't we take it, et cetera. And because of where our tree would go versus Troy's, which is in the middle of that,
Right.
that green space, whatever, for safety reasons, there's a whole process that you have to do with a hole in the ground. I mean, do you want to speak to it since you?
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
So, Troy, where they have theirs placed currently, has guy wires that support it, as well as what appears to be an engineered foundation. Similarly, in other communities I worked in, when you have a live tree, there's some aspect of engineering and planning that goes into it, which we haven't done. I would like to at least speak to the lights on the trees downtown. The trees are past their service life. They're enormous, way too big for the streetscape. And so the amount of lights that are on the trees are the maximum that the circuit can handle. But however, when you string it in a large tree like that, it displaces and you can't really see the lights on it. So in the CIP or improvements to the streetscape next year down on Main Street, to get some of those trees out and put the proper size and species in, which would then also allow us to decorate the trees with lights one time the proper way that you can use not only at Christmas but throughout the year when you want to have lights on downtown. Furthermore, the plan that was done by the development department for some of the renovations of downtown didn't necessarily include the aspect of a holiday tree, so we'll have to look into that. But in the meantime, I've been working with the Parks Department to find something, and as an interim fix, possibly a pre-lit smaller tree that we can put downtown for this year until we work through some of these steps.
How about any other types of, I know they used to wrap the light poles, and, there just used to be more decoration downtown. And it seems like the only thing that we have done is the lights in the trees. And I understand about the trees, they need to go.
Right. And once again, as we work through holiday decorations, and I was speaking about that earlier in our budget meeting, that we have to understand what our resources are and what are, really what are we capable of getting done. There are 4 employees in parks, and so when they put the tree lights up, it took 240 hours, labor hours, for them to do that with a lift. So, I would love to have everything highly decorated and have it changed out 4 or 5 times a year. But as a community, we have to figure out what makes sense and what that looks like, and certainly with your help.
Okay, I was just going to say, is there any way that we could get some involvement with the other citizens and figure out what can we do, I know you got to consider a budget.
Right.
And those kinds of things, but really think we need some citizen input.
Yep, it's a good plug-in for Main Street and the chamber, yeah.
Right. and-
Okay,
Right.
thank
and-
you.
And I know, having sat on Main Street's board for many years, there have been numerous conversations about window decorations and a variety of other things, and the issue is you want to get all the businesses involved, and that can be an issue as well. So, and one thing I will say, that just because of, I live on the very west side of town, and when the wind comes through in the wintertime, as much as you want to decorate and do things, you have to be really careful with what you put out because of the wind and the snow and the sleet, because you want it to look as nice as it can for as long as it can. And many times it can go into the end of January because of weather that we're not able to take those things down. So we do need to make sure that what we put up is weather worthy. So that's another thing just to take into consideration. But I know Lorna and the Main Street folks do a lot to keep our downtown beautiful, so thank you.
Do you know, so you mentioned like volunteers or donations and those types of things. So what kind of restraints would there be there if somebody said a group wanted to come down and decorate? They would provide all the lights, they'd put it up and tear it down. I mean, would they be allowed to, or is there, yeah?
Yeah, we'd have to look at how that program would work, because certainly having somebody out in the right-of-way doing work on our behalf, we have to have waivers and things of that nature. So we could it's not unheard of, but we would have to be, I think, specific in what that looks like.
Okay. I mean, because, I definitely want to turn down assistance or help or something to make our downtown look nice, because you can't put that all on Main Street in the city, and there's a lot of resources that we utilize as much as we can, but
Correct, ma'am.
if somebody's willing, I don't know what that option is.
We, each spring, Main Street Piqua does a fundraising campaign, and we raise money for the summer beautification program. And then some years ago, we also did a Christmas decoration fundraising campaign. So if there's discussion of, in the short term, a tree being put up, Main Street Piqua can absorb some of those expenses, and certainly are willing to do that. Christmas on the Green is coming up. I've had 3 emails and 2 phone calls about, is that the event that we light the tree at? And I've had to say, we don't have a tree. So if we can have some kind of tree, let's do it. But again, I don't know what that involves, and I defer to our city manager on that, because he does. So, but I do know that our citizens would like to have a community Christmas tree.
Lorna, who decorates the gazebo and the bows and garland?
So those are Main Street resources that pay for the gazebo decorations. Those are happening next Wednesday, the 30th. So the gazebo will be fully decorated in
Lights.
time for Christmas on the Green on the 2nd. And then there are other decorations on the Fort Piqua Plaza. Main Street is not responsible for those. I believe the city is.
The library typically puts a tree above the portico going in, too.
That is the city that does
Oh,
that.
is this the city?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see. It's at the library. I just assumed it was a library.
No,
so.
that's another thing that the city does that people don't know that they do, but for the moment, that's our deferred community Christmas tree. So, yeah, we can help. We've got our citizens have already stepped forward in previous rounds to do that, and we just got to come up with a plan on how we're going to do it, so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Commissioners, can you hear me all right? I can't hear myself. Tom Hudson, 608 North Downing Street here in Piqua. Got a couple comments and questions about various things. And the first one, I watch the commission meetings quite a bit at home, and I'm highly disappointed, not in you guys, but in the quality of the transmission. And I know we have Indian Station, I know we broadcast it on YouTube, but it's extremely low quality. Half your faces are blurry. You look like Freddy Krueger. I highly suggest that you go home and look at it, because it's just a horrible representation of what we could be. And I don't know if it's our camera equipment, the equipment in the back, but it needs addressed, and it needs addressed yesterday. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Can I ask a question on that? Because didn't we switch more to like YouTube due to some of the quality?
Right, so the definition that's broadcast on Channel 5 is so poor that we just go straight to the YouTube, and it's a higher resolution.
The YouTube's not
However,
bad.
we're limited to the cameras that are currently installed and are some 20 years old.
Yeah,
I'd
maybe we
imagine.
could encourage Piqua City Schools with Indian Nation and fiber optics. So anyhow, I just wanted to put that on. Second thing I've been asking the city manager and various commissioners about the street signs in Piqua. It's been a 5-year, 6-year project, and we still have not a uniform signs for our street systems. And do we have a hard deadline? And obviously, it's money, and we do that stuff in-house, but I was wondering if we could get that program going and give the citizens a hard date and actually stick to it.
Right, so we actually had a vendor, Transmap, come in, and they did an evaluation and inventory of all of our current signs, and so we're using that as the program driver for, replacement. When I got here, I kind of inherited the changeover from the current signs to the white, black and white signs. And so I'll be working with the Public Works Director to find out what his program looks like. That's going to be a part of his annual work plan, which every department will be doing. So there will be hard dates for not only that, but other work and other programming that we have.
When could we expect those hard dates maybe?
It's sometime in the beginning of the year. They'll have a work plan for '23.
All right, perfect. I'll count on that, because I've been wanting, I drive around town, I see these signs, we have green and white. It's been driving me crazy.
I agree.
I've been highly encouraged by the Wilder citizens stepping up to the plate and really voicing their concerns with the city and the Board of Education. And so it's got to be uplifting to everybody here that we've got the citizens' involvement on that. And I believe right now the Board of Education owns that facility. Do they have an oral agreement with the city of Piqua to develop that?
They have an agreement with the developer as developer of choice, so basically that's where we're at right
And
now.
right now, it's been put on the back shelf, correct?
It's tabled.
It's tabled. But the school owns it, and is it a legal agreement, or is it just a oral agreement?
It's a written agreement.
Okay. All right. Well, anyhow, I've been very encouraged about that. Second thing I wanted to ask about this whole rock quarry business. This has been a public relations disaster for the city of Piqua. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. I think if you bring up a problem, there should be some solutions to it. And we have a little history here. Mr. Schmeezing's our economic director, and he dropped the ball several years ago with Scott Phillips and American Wood Shop, and Scott got a last-minute notice with Piqua Materials on the same project that we had here, lack of communication, last minute, and it really puts a bad tone in people's their feeling of how that all happens. And the fact that we did not mail out mailers, the fact that we didn't communicate with all those business people, that we didn't get feedback, it's just not necessary. And it's like I'm watching history repeat itself again with the same thing. I know you guys can't comment on that at this time. Also, too, Mr. Patrizio, I watched the commission meeting at home, and he basically told you guys that you're voting on this and that you're not okay in a rock quarry. And then the next week after that, the story was reversed. And so I'm sitting here, I'm kind of a lay person, I'm watching this, I'm confused. And now it's in litigation, and I just think it's just been a poor thing, and I'm hoping the city can remedy it and listen to the citizens of Piqua, what they want. And I think at least the majority of you don't want this. You want a development park, but you don't want a rock quarry. And so hopefully we can get this resolving, maybe get that developed and have nice jobs down there. Then the last thing I wanted to ask real quick, how many commission meetings are you guys allowed to miss in a course of a year?
The charter says it's back to back, and I can't remember how many it is.
What do you mean back-to-back?
You can't miss so many back-to-back?
Sure what.
Because back when I was on the commission, I believe it was 2 or 3 a year. And we have lots of issues like families sick, we've got kids in college, we got sick parents, we have funerals and that type of thing. And I'm just concerned about Mrs. Hines' lack of being here at these meetings and missing out on other things. And I think you owe it to the citizens to be here all the meetings. And I didn't know if there's an actual rule of 2 or 3 meetings a year that you're allowed to miss, but every time I turn on the television, you seem like you're missing, and with good cause. Family's important. Job obligations are important. And we had Joe Wilson quit the commission because he had second shift. We had Tom Fote who resigned because he had things. And I think if people have obligations and they can't fulfill their duties, that they're shortchanging the citizens of Piqua. So, thank you.
Good evening, Melanie Walker, 526 North Wayne Street, and I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity for the grant program with having downtown business. It was a nice opportunity to do some things that wouldn't have been able to afford, you know, when you're looking at what's going on in that. And so I really appreciate that opportunity to make the downtown area look a little bit nicer. Thank you.
Well, appreciate you having a business down there and wanting to beautify. We want the small businesses downtown, wherever in the city, that can take advantage of this grant to get the grant. We just get a few questions, and hopefully by the next meeting, untable it and get you guys going. So.
Eva Silvers, 319 Third. I'm hoping that when you guys go through the budget plan, that you're going to be very transparent with that. And maybe we can find some issues with the problems we have, not just like golf course related issues that is a select part of the community, but like overall issues that impact the entire community, like the potholes in our roadways. We have a lot of different roads that are very, very bad right now. And I'm hoping there's some general funds set aside for that.
Did you come to the work session?
I did not. I was not
All
able
right.
to.
So they're going to spend a lot more money next year. Was it 1.5?
I know they
Sir?
can't do anything much in the winter.
I believe it was 1.6.
$1.6 million next year on roads and stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
we didn't do much this year. You're
That's
right.
just what I'm saying, like, when you're making a
You're right.
decision for the funds of the community, try to make the major decisions, and I guess the first top priority decisions, what would impact the majority instead of a select few. I know our roads, I know, you know, we have a lot of properties and businesses, and I know I'm working with some people right now about bringing some businesses in, but it's kind of touch and go, really. I mean, it is with everything going on and the battle back and forth with the city. A lot of people are like, you know, I'm not too sure I want to come there. So we're trying to like amp them up to be like, hey, it's not that bad of a place. We're kind of going through some right now, but
We're
we'll
getting
get
there.
through it.
We'll get there.
But
yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the roadways are, because it's like they're horrible.
The budget's online, so you can check
Is
that
it?
out. And if you see something that you got questions about, feel free to ask, okay?
All right, thank
And I appreciate that.
And kind of two things to say on that, too. I know 36 was a big contingency. We got those fixed. Roadways have definitely been a focus. The levee passed. I can tell you, going through the CIP with capital improvements, looking at them, I know there was a proposal for a roundabout out by the schools. You know, we took that seriously and looked at where we can better allocate those monies towards the streets. I will say I get a lot of calls from citizens in regards to the streets because they want theirs paved. And we do a good evaluation process of our streets and really try to hit the most needed ones first. People may not always believe that because theirs looks like they're in deteriorated condition, but we are trying to do the best we can in those. Right, yeah. And, yeah. And we are playing some catch-up, and the Streets Department's done a great job of coming up with new techniques to prolong the life of them, because otherwise we're kind of chasing our tail on them. But that's one topic I agree with you on the budgets. But yeah, please look at it. It'd be as transparent on those financial budgets as possible. So if you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to us, because you may see something that, you know, we may not, but because the packet's pretty thick. But I can tell you our team's done a really good job of going through them line item by line item, rating them, seeing what is going to be the most effective for the city for the next coming year.
Any other comments?
I say my name again? You should know me by now.
Say it.
Roland Simer, 660 South Street.
Thank you.
You know, helping the small businesses, that's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But I ain't never heard, since I don't come to these very often, I ain't never heard about getting a grant to help people fix up their houses. All we want to do is tear them down. Why don't we, you know, there is grants out there. You guys got a grant for,
You know, you haven't heard of the CHIP program?
yeah, but why don't, like,
That's
some of
money
these
to
houses,
help
why don't we help
fix up
people
their
fix them
house.
upstairs, tear them down?
That's money to help fix up their house, the CHIP program. You just said you never heard of it.
Well, I did back when I was 18, 19 years old.
There are programs out there to help fix up their house.
Now,
But we do need
I
to,
bought this here a while back, and one of those guys over there said, we ain't checked into it yet. I think it was that one on that side.
And what are you referring to, sir?
I asked you guys about helping people fix these houses up.
Right.
But you guys want to tear them down. Now you want a small business. I'm a small business guy too.
you could have applied.
I'm a small business guy too. But why don't we help the people fix their houses up instead of tearing it down?
Correct, and we have the CHIP
And I
fund.
asked you about it, and you said you'll look into it.
I'm right about that, aren't I, Chris? This CHIP,
Yeah.
that's it.
So we currently have a program in place, and I think the question is how much money were we diverting to the small business? It's not any of the CHIP funding.
Yeah.
Something else.
We do have money that goes to help fix houses.
I gotta say that, you know, people in Pickering don't know it, I bet you.
We put it out there every year, and we talk about it, it's on the website.
Okay. That's a beautiful picture up there.
Why don't you tell people,
Let me say something. Go take a picture of it now and see what it looks like. That's a beautiful picture up there. I look at it every time I come in here. Have somebody take a picture of City of Pickering now and see what it looks like. You guys think I'm down in City of Pickering. No, I want to get some changes. I ain't gonna do no good. My son says I'm just digging a hole to myself. But it's just, you know, it's just sad how bad the cities went down in the past years. I'm 68 years old, and it's sad. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Last time we thought we had 250 empty lots in the city of Pickering, the city owns, I heard. I was a commissioner when they brought it up. And somebody said, how you know that? Well, she's a realtor. All you gotta do is check public records. 250 empty lots in town. What are you gonna do with them all? And I was told, I went to court last week, I was told, if I don't get that place cleaned up on Kent Street, which it's cleaned up, they're gonna fine me $1,000. Now, why do they have to fine me $1,000 for cleaning up a freaking yard? Is this what this town's going to? That guy right over here? Is that what he wants this town to go to? Is that what you want this town to go to, Frank?
we want landlords to be responsible.
Huh?
We want landlords to be
Okay,
responsible.
you tell Frank right over there, show me pictures before and show me pictures of now, and I guarantee it's cleaned up. But not to satisfy Aaron. Who is Aaron? Aaron ain't God. We don't have to satisfy Aaron. My opinion, Aaron shouldn't be working for a town because he don't live in this town.
Sir, if you have any questions about the staff, you can talk to me about that.
He'll give me a meeting.
Right.
I mean, it's just sad this town doesn't go to hell like this.
Are there any other comments? We'll go to city commissioner, city manager's report.
Good evening. I'll be brief. First of all, I just want to make note that the city building will be closed next week for Thanksgiving holiday on November 24th and 25th. Our employees will be observing the holiday weekend. Also, too, we've been talking a lot about technology, and with the Smart Hub rollout that'll be happening and going live on December 5th, if you're currently enrolled in a payment, you need to go to the website and follow the dates because there will be a period of time where your online payment will not be able to be made. So please go to the website and check that out. And that's all I have this evening.
Moving to commissioners, Commissioner Hines.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pearson. Just a reminder, Lorna mentioned it, Christmas on the Green is coming up. Hard to believe, we are almost halfway through, if not November. Thanksgiving is a week away, and then we have Christmas on the Green, and And the Christmas season, the holiday season is upon us. So just remember that that is always a wonderful activity, full of a variety of things. Downtown shops are open, show choir performs, there's all sorts of fun things happening, so please remember that. I am sorry that Mr. Hudson left because I
too.
did find the information in our charter that reads that the absence from 3, this is Section 8, Rules of the Commission. Absence from 3 consecutive regular meetings shall operate to vacate the seat of a member unless such absence be authorized or excused by the commission. I will say that I have not been absent 3 consecutive meetings. I am a human, and I have a life, and I have a family. And I feel that I have done a very ethical job in serving this city, and I have put many things before my family in times such as this, but as my child goes off to college, as a mom, that's where I want to be. So I am sorry he felt that way. Everybody has a right to their opinion, but I will say that I believe that I have always had this city before me. I have always done the most I can to promote this city, and many of you don't know the work that we do behind the scenes. So it's not just sitting up here on Tuesday night in a meeting. There are many other things that we do and that we sacrifice family time and other time to be here. And I do it because I love this city and I love serving this city. So I just wanted to respond to that because I felt like it was undue. Thank you. Thank you.
Well
You
said.
do.
Well said.
I'm glad you responded. I was going to do it for you.
Thank you.
Seriously. And you've been excused at all of those meetings that you
Yeah.
missed.
Yes, you
So,
have.
And I've also been viewing from behind
Yes.
as I'm in the car in Wyoming.
And you contact us,
have
telling
been
us.
contacting people. So it's
Yes.
not like I'm just,
That's
yeah.
true.
How many people have I called when I've been gone? All of you.
All of us.
So,
All
thank
of
you.
us. Thank you.
Commissioner Grissom?
I do not have any comments this evening.
That's unusual.
I know, right?
I know.
It's hard to follow that one, isn't
I
it?
know.
Vice Chair.
Oh, I'm not saying anything. I'm good. She said it all, but
Anymore.
and in her defense, you know, I have to agree. I mean, I have 7 kids, and when they're gone, you want to be with them. And it's not like she's missed many meetings. In the meetings she's missed, she's been excused for. And she's always behind the scenes doing a lot of things he may not know about. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Beth?
Are we still on for town hall tomorrow night?
We are. Town Hall tomorrow.
And I'll be there.
7 o'clock here.
I was waiting for that
in the
one.
chambers
7
for
o'clock here.
town hall meeting tomorrow
I'll be
night. And I'm bringing my radio from the Y, so if I get called later.
Oh, so you got to go, huh?
Yeah, well, we'll see.
You're a block away.
Just another announcement, included in the holiday activities will be a holiday concert by the Piqua Civic Band on Sunday afternoon, the 4th of December, 3 o'clock at Westminster Church. Fun event. I enjoy playing it, and I think most people will enjoy coming to it. So it's a
Appreciate it.
big event. I saw an interesting article on the news about stolen cars in the Dayton area, and I think the percentage was that stolen vehicles in 2022 are up 69%. And I think if you've watched that whole thing, you understand, part of the reasons. But one of the reasons is people leave their keys in their car when they get out. And I'm saying, please accept my recommendation that when you get out of your car, you take your keys and lock your car when you get out.
I have a remote. That makes no sense. Go ahead.
Again, your
I hear you.
car can be locked, and that's the
Exactly.
process. So
That's-
if you want to prevent car theft, at least in part, you can start by taking your keys out of your car. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. is a park board meeting, and they're going to be meeting in the conference room. We have town hall tomorrow night at 7 here. I want to back up a little bit. We haven't talked about Thanksgiving, but I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving with your families. There will be a Thanksgiving service at the Piqua Baptist Church on High Street on November 20th, which is a Sunday at 6 p.m. open to everybody. So happy Thanksgiving. Remember to be kind, to be thoughtful, to be genuine, but also to be very thankful for what we have. Small businesses are open Saturday, November 26th, downtown. Downtown Holiday Open House, December 2nd and 3rd. The Holiday Christmas Parade is December 3rd at 2 p.m. Sounds of the Season at St. James Episcopal Church on Saturday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. Lots of local talent will be there. That's all I have, and happy Thanksgiving. I will take a motion to
Make a motion.
adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.